brothers and sisters. So let's continue our series on spiritual warfare and the discernment of spirits. It's good to be back in action with you guys. The last video we spoke about the paradigm of ascent, which really models to us 4 crucial areas of our spiritual life that we need to pay particular attention to. And if we do, we see that these areas have led to men and women achieving profound union with God already in this life and have reached, sanctity. And so this paradigm of ascent is like a compass for us to navigate the interior life, to find peace and joy, and to taste already the first fruits, you wish, of a heavenly life already on earth, which is to really start living like a saint. And so this paradigm of ascent, as Dan would say in his book, is a saint-making machine. The first one, just to recap quickly, we spoke about we must have a genuine yes in our heart to God, to seek God, to move away from sin, a firm, resolute will towards the Lord. Then we spoke about the daily commitment to prayer, prayer being that source of tremendous grace in our life for us to tap very much deeply into Christ. And of course, we spoke about especially the prayer of confession, going to meet the Lord in the sacrament of confession, and therefore being really disposed to receive him worthily in the Eucharist, which is the source and summit of all our life, and from which rivers of grace and divine life flow into our life. So then the last kind of area of the paradigm of ascent is, just the self-denial, the spiritual exercises that we must take up every day to deny sin and to take up our cross and to follow the Lord, to really train ourselves, just like a person training for a sport or in the gym must make sacrifice and self-denial in their diets, in their exercise, to shape the body to prepare it for a particular goal. Well, we must do the same for our soul, to prepare it for heaven, so that we could respond to grace and find divine union. Today we want to go on to speak about that another crucial area of the spiritual life is to just have a daily routine, or what we call in the Catholic tradition a rule of life, or as Dan says in their own community, in the Apostolic VA community, they call it a plan of love. We need to be relentless at really marking down for us a schedule of our day of prayer, and put goals. We must set goals for ourselves in the spiritual life that we attain and we achieve. Do we do our spiritual reading? Do we have times for solitude and prayer with the Lord? Are we making our examination of conscience? I'm going to speak a little bit more about that today. So basically, Dan gives an example. Says you could do first thing in the morning, wake up and make sure you have that time in the morning just before your day begins, to have that silent time to do your mental prayer. And it might be, you might start off at 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And you might decide to choose to read the gospel of that day that wouldn't be normally read in the Holy Mass. You may choose to be silent. You may begin your morning with the rosary. You might have a little candle in your room that is blessed, and you might light your candle just to focus you. So how you begin your day matters. You probably saw that video about this great American Army general who would say, if you got out of your bed and you made your bed up first thing in the morning, you've made an achievement ready for the day. And it makes a difference psychologically to how you spend the rest of your day. And so another idea is you could have your morning prayer in the morning. You might not be able to sit down and pray the whole rosary, although I highly recommend that. But you might do 1 decade in the car on the way to work, or you might do 2. You might do another decade of the rosary in the middle of the day. You might do a decade at the end of the day. Before you know it, you've had all 5 decades done. We also, the morning and evening prayer of the church, which is, we could download in an app called iBreviary on it's an app that we could get, or Universalis is another app where we could find out the prayers and the psalms that the church prays every day. There are many ways. We visit the Blessed Sacrament, obviously we will attend Holy Mass. So we must have a routine to find prayer in order to ground our lives, to keep where we put aside time just to think of the eternal things and to think of God exclusively, so that we could then find God more easily in the very ordinary events of life. We would want to really, commit to confession. Some people go every week. certainly every other week, and certainly every month, once a month. And so there's also this examination of conscience that really helps at the end of the day. And Dan suggests that it's not just about beating yourself up. First, he suggests that you actually look over your day, moments of grace, where you're aware that you could not do that without God's help. And you take a mental helicopter, he says, and you fly over your day, and you see where times where graces were given, and you thank God for being with me in that moment. See how God was alive in your day. Then see your weaknesses and say to the Lord, make commitments to do better, and to maybe make a note that I need to bring this to confession. So, brothers and sisters, basically, this is just some foundations for discernment in our spiritual life that we need to put in our little book so that we can have a healthy spiritual life, because nothing is more important than having a healthy spiritual life so that we could start really living that heavenly life on earth.